Learning from layoffs in the AAA gaming industry. Yeah, that sounds like something that is not gonna happen. Also, let's be real. In the modern day, gaming is primarily a business. It is no longer the thing that was made by people with passion. Now, even though that's kind of technically being brought back nowadays with things like Baldur's Gate 3, Helldivers to a degree, not Helldivers 2 now. Obviously, uh, Blade Obscure Expedition 33 is currently popping off, and well, many other games are winning, and those are the games that have passion behind them. But the gaming industry, still in general, is a business, and in a business, there is not a lot of hesitation to let go of people who are no longer necessary.
Layoffs used to be a last ditch effort to save a studio. Game companies would find that they could no longer pay salary, and so they'd slim down their team and try to make it until they could find new financing. Now they seem to be a trend, they seem to be
True.
accelerating, and it's heartbreaking because there is a real human cost for doing layoffs. It's one of the most destructive things you can do to a team.
So one of the things that has massively changed from this aspect, by the way, is the fact that a lot of game companies that were previously, well, had to actually kind of survive like that to a degree almost, because that was routine for them to try and find someone who will invest in them so they have money to continue doing things. Nowadays, every company worth something is honestly owned by some kind of a big multi-billion-dollar corporation. Microsoft owns a lot of things. Sony owns a lot of things, and well, even other things that are less well known but still kind of big. The the big players in the AAA industry actually own a lot of indie devs and so on. So it's no longer about trying to survive until the next person who's going to give you money so you can continue doing what you are doing. It's okay. Our owner needs to see numbers that are not eating into the profits too much and things like that. So layoffs are just a budgetary tool, more or less, in this case, nothing else.
And the worst part is that it doesn't have to be this way. If game leaders start managing their content production, their teams, and their costs, the industry could return to a stable place where layoffs are the exception, not the rule. For context, it helps if you understand a little bit about the stages of development to understand what one of the key problems is here. Simply put, there are 3 phases of production. The first is pre-production. This is where you're figuring out what the game is. You have ideas and you're trying to translate them into plans that can be built.
Okay, be smart. We have heard word before.
You need to be small and agile. You can't have a large team working on the game during pre-production. You can't, because it slows you.
Bro, think about Oh, by the way, but when I think about it, how many times have we heard about AAA games that have been scrapped and remade like multiple times at this point? What was the BioWare game with mechs? You know, with the mech suits called. I forget always what it's called, but that thing. That thing was scrapped and remade into a different vision like 5 times or something. That is insane. Okay. And in the movie industry, this currently is pretty normal. You hear about a big show, and then you hear about it having like 4 separate reshoots because reasons, and it's still a complete pile of shit.
Down too much.
Now I'm in production. We'll need to double up the staff of this company within the next 12 months to be able to make a game of this size.
Once you move into production, you need a lot more people. This is where all the artists and designers join the team full-time and start cranking out content. It's easy for things to go off track because communication has to scale and it's a long phase of development. Eventually, you get through, almost all of the code is done, almost all of the content, and guess what? It's time to slim the team down.
I wonder what she actually means by communication needs to be scaled. Is she in a general sense, or because there's 2 ways to look at it? I mean, it doesn't really matter too much, but it would be an interesting discussion in depth.
Down again.
At the end of every production, they draw on a whiteboard a plane that's on fire, and then the analogy is you've got to land, right? Like
When you're shipping and finalizing a build, pushing it out is very difficult. It's easy to break things, so you don't want a lot of people touching the code. You lock it down and only a small number of people make changes.
You've got to eventually get light and land that sucker.
And this is one of the age-old problems in game development, and it's gotten worse because the teams have gotten big. What do you do with all of these people that you no longer need on the product at the end and beginning of the game? During the ship phase, most of the team rolls off, and in the short term, they typically rest, they take some time off, they come into the office a little later and leave a little earlier. But that downtime doesn't last forever. Soon the team is eager to get back to creating. Talented artists want...
Now, granted, this all sounds fine and dandy, but the reality of most situations is this is what I have heard from multiple developers. I have heard so many stories on YouTube, in a lot of places, that, and it involves obviously crunch. Effectively, what happens in the first 60-70% of the time that you have in development, everyone's just fucking around and doing absolutely nothing. And then the crunch needs to start because you need to finish. That's how a lot of development happens, because when you have so much time, when it's literally, when the timeline is, oh, this thing needs to be done in 4 years, of course you're laying back, of course you're kicking back and doing not that much and just, trying to see who you're gonna try and cheat on your wife within the office. It's just normal stuff. And then, a year passes, 2 years pass, and now, well, shit, suddenly half the game needs to be finished and you're only 10% done. There are so many stories about game development literally being pretty much exact that, even if not honestly worse. And again, you hear this in AAA, you hear this in a lot of places. And that is the problem with having a lot of people working in general on anything, not even gaming, and just in general. Because if you're doing something and you need to run that by another person or need something from someone else, well, now your time is being taken up by them. And maybe they're not even looking into your problem.
Want to make art. They don't want to hang out in the office all day doing nothing. When you ship, it's a perfect time for your competitors to steal your best artists, and they will. Passionate creators need to create, so one option companies take is to have everyone work on
LOL artists.
downloadable content. The team that has rolled off the game can work on new maps, levels, weapons, skins, items that can be shipped later that fans will enjoy and that might bring in a little additional money to keep the studio afloat. I know in recent years, many gamers have gotten upset about downloadable content because they feel like it should be shipped with the game. But
well, yeah, obviously.
the reality is that it's often not ready. If hooking it up and making it available will destabilize the shipping build, developers aren't going to do it. They'll get the game out.
Yes, that's a this is a reasonable take until you think about it, because wait, you're telling me these people are making this game that's not finished and it needs to be polished, but they're already making the DLC? Why? If it's not, you see the problem that occurs? Why are you doing the future when the now needs to be done? Why aren't you polishing games? Why is there going to be a day one 250 gigabyte patch because reasons? Why?
And then they'll ship this additional content later. Another option is to move the artist to another game in the studio, one that is moved into production. This is why it's desirable to have multiple games in different stages of development. Obsidian was already working on Outer Worlds 2 when Avowed shipped. They had a place to land their team. If a studio doesn't
Avowed was trash, and is trash, and Outer Worlds 2 is gonna be, you guessed it, complete trash.
have a second game, they can also take on work from another studio. And you see this happening a lot. They essentially get paid to have their people working on someone else's game while they finish up their own. For example, Crystal Dynamics is currently working on a new Tomb Raider and co-developing a reboot of Perfect Dark with the Xbox studio called The Initiative.
I was gonna talk about Perfect Dark. I was shuddering thinking about this image. Yeah, that's Perfect Dark for you. The Karen simulator, okay? She has one goal, and it is to find the manager. What manager of everything, okay? Where there's a manager, she is searching for it. This is just holy shit, okay? She is gonna blame you for parking in the handicapped spot, and then she's gonna park there herself. It's just the world we live in.
Crystal did recently announce a layoff, but it was much smaller than it would have been if they weren't working on multiple projects. Some studios will hire contractors to bulk up the team. Since they know they don't need them long term, they only hire them for a few months and then let them go after the project is done. Microsoft used to do this with testing. They were co-located with the team, and it was a really great pipeline for hiring because if you were a great tester, you would get hired. Another popular option is outsourcing. There are large outsourcing companies that will help you with all different aspects of game development. It's pretty amazing. And oftentimes, they can operate more cheaply than the game studio does. For example, with Virtuous, you can see a long list of titles they've worked on, including Stellar Blade and Call of Duty. And there are many more possible partners. This can allow a team to stay smaller and keep their costs down. Hiring generalists is another strategy. Of course, there are also many famous one-man band games. Games like Stardew Valley and the recent Schedule 1, where everything was primarily done by one person. But on bigger games, they have more specialists, and specialists can't move around easily. Some studios focus on hiring and
Well, yeah, that's why they're called specialists.
training more generalists, which gives the team more flexibility. Studios can use some of the downtime to help improve their team members and invest in their skills. But this requires knowing the team. And this brings me to the second thing I see studios struggling with: managing their people. Look, making a game with your friends is a lot of fun. It is one of the best jobs in the world. But it is still a business, and you have to run it that way. And it's a hard business.
Everything where you go with friends into business, they're no longer your friends. That's just the reality of it. It always turns into an employer-employee relationship. That's just for the world.
People don't have to give you money. You're singing for your supper. If they don't like what you make, they can just not buy it. And that means you have to be even better at managing the studio and managing the team. To be
Concord, LOL.
blunt, I think a lot of studio leaders have become cowardly and lazy. It's part of why we
Nice.
see layoffs accelerating. Leaders aren't doing the hard things anymore. Look, I get it. I don't like dealing with toxic people. Who does? Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to deal with them. But guess what? The leader has to do it because that's what you're getting paid to do. And if you don't do it, it's not going to get better. This is most true with toxic people because they're abusive. If a leader doesn't curb that abusiveness and do something about it, it's not like they improve. They don't suddenly come to their senses and go, wow, I'm
That's the most based opinion we have had ever. Because this boils down to, hey, shitty people deserve to be punished because they're not gonna stop being shitty if you reward their shittiness. Holy! Okay, now we're cooking.
kind of being a jerk. I think I'll stop doing that. It never happens. They just keep being abusive. It only gets worse. There is no easy path. You either deal with the person or you lose your talent. Because your best people, they don't have to put up with the abuse. They can find other jobs, and they will. Typically, when you let
Yeah.
someone go
Unless you emotionally manipulate them and force them to stay with you, there's a solution for everything.
from a company, you don't talk about why they're being let go. But I have never seen a time when a team revolted after a toxic person or someone who wasn't performing was let go. It didn't happen because they already knew. Leaders walk around thinking somehow people don't know that this person isn't getting their job done or they're being kind of an asshole in the hallways. It's not a secret because they have to deal with these people every day. And it's
True.
incredibly frustrating to them. In fact, a lot of times managers
Dude.
and leaders wait.
This is what this is my story about man. Well, it's not a story, but it's just this is literally every single person who thinks that manager is stupid and doesn't understand what's happening. No, your manager just thinks that you are a fucking waste of oxygen that does not deserve, that has absolutely no means of existing. The only reason you're not fired by your dumb manager is because replacing because you're doing a slop job, but it's good enough for the situation, and replacing you would be more annoying. Okay, this is like 9 out of 10 situations where someone thinks, "Oh, my manager is an idiot who doesn't understand anything that's happening here." Sometimes it's true, but then it's blatantly true, and everyone knows that. Okay, and you're not the only one who's saying my manager is stupid. No, no, no. Your manager just doesn't think that you should even be alive. That's because you have no absolute worth. You're trash. So you don't deserve interactions.
So long that their best talent is already out interviewing because they've lost faith. If you're already having regular check-ins with people, you're collecting data on how they're doing, you're talking to their peers, you're giving them feedback, you're having performance reviews. If you're doing all of this, you already have all the data you need to manage people who are not performing out. And this is why I'm saying leaders are lazy, because you already have to do this in order to retain your talent. You need data on how people are doing so that you can recognize them and reward them. If this sounds harsh, you probably shouldn't lead, because dealing with people that aren't doing great work is the job. And look, I'm not saying you aren't going to give people a chance. You absolutely should. That's the whole point of the regular feedback. If they've been a great performer and they're suddenly not doing so well, you need to figure out why that is, and you need to try to help them get back on track. You shouldn't toss someone out
They'll figure it out. Give them a week.
at the first sign of trouble. It's expensive to hire and train new people, so you should be investing in your team, their skills, and their success. That said, it's also expensive to carry a person that can't do their job, and it can't go on forever. You can't have one person dragging down the entire team because you only have so much runway. And this gets to the third point. You have to manage costs. You need to spend your money wisely. The cost of making a game is not fixed. It can be managed like any other business. The key is to think about what the studio needs first. Obviously, they need a place to work, either office or home. They need good computers, monitors, they need a desk, and most importantly, a comfortable, ergonomic chair. If you're going to have people sitting all day working on art or code or design, they need to not mess up their back. So comfy chairs are important.
Oh, I thought this is an ad out of nowhere. Okay.
Of course, if you do have an office, there will need to be whiteboards, meeting spaces, some sort of kitchen, and of course, bathrooms. After that, everything else is optional. And oftentimes, the optional items don't get used. Every studio has some kind of item like a foosball table or a pinball game sitting unused in the corner because it was too loud and distracted everyone that was trying to do work. In my experience, the key talent doesn't have time.
I mean, tell that to like fucking Microsoft or any Silicon Valley company, okay? Man, I love those videos where women in the tech industry get to talk about their day. I come in late 5 hours, and then I go get a mocha mate latte, and then I do nothing, and then I have a brunch, and then I go home. Like, did you even do work? And what? And you're getting paid 200K a year? What? What kind of work are you? Did you? I want to be paid 200K for eating a mocha latte, Fape. What? Please.
Or any desire to do anything except make their game, and when they are done for the day, they want to go out and spend time with their family, their friends, or even work on a pet project. This is a little secret about the games industry that I found, that the best engineers and designers were always working on a pet project in their free time, because doing that work was the core of who they were. It was in the fabric of their being.
Abuse that.
Same was true of key talent working in big tech companies.
Right in the heart of Silicon Valley, Facebook is cooking up a big new project to expand its Menlo Park campus into what can only be described as a fully fledged town.
The campus was crazy. They had massive amounts of overspending in all sorts of areas. Any kind of food you wanted, ice cream. It was nice. But the worst
When is your company going too far? When you have a beanbag.
part about it is that it attracted the exact wrong kind of employee. Why would you want to attract
Oh, Jesus, she's gonna destroy the hipsters.
talent that wants to spend the day working in the woodworking shop instead of making Instagram great? The people who had time to spend in the Facebook woodworking shop each day were by definition not key talent. And I can assure you, these people were also the ones complaining about work-life balance and how they were always at work. After providing what is needed for getting
Wait, they seriously had a woodworking shop? Holy shit, look at that. There's a vacuum hose already attached to the saw. Oh, that's expensive.
the game done, then you have things like health insurance, vacation time, things that are must-haves but also can be scaled based on your budget and the culture you want to create in the studio.
One of the most higher up people in the offices are the first things you see when you walk in.
It kind of cements home the overall theme where it's like, hey, it's in Chicago, not exactly the hotbed of game development these days. It's just some good old-fashioned Midwestern humility going on down there. It's focused, it's not glitzy, it's not glamorous.
Wait, are we talking about Warner Brother Games? Shit. They couldn't make a game if their life depended on it.
But they love their past and they're good at what they do.
Games have always been a
Mortal Kombat? Who the hell owns Mortal Kombat, by the way? I don't even know.
challenge. Because
Wait, who owns any of the fighting games? I don't even know.
even when you do everything right, you can still fail. Even when your heart's in the right place, you listen to the customer and you actually make something gamers want to play, you can still lose.
Ha, the gamers don't even understand what they want in life. Anyway, that was Mommy. That was Laura Freyer. 10 out of 10. Have a nice day. Bye!